Wealth, titles, and power are fragile illusions. A man may inherit a fortune, but if he cannot face himself in the mirror, he is poorer than the beggar who still carries dignity in his chest. Life has a strange way of balancing the scales. Those cast aside often find within themselves a fire that the comfortable will never know. Pain becomes fuel, rejection becomes purpose, and sometimes the very children dismissed as burdens rise higher than the parents who disowned them. He was the kind of man people admired from a distance, a CEO with polished shoes, a perfect smile, and a reputation built on power and precision. His name carried weight in boardrooms, but behind the walls of his glass office, there was a truth he kept hidden. Years earlier, he had 2 sons with a woman he never planned to marry. When the boys turned 10, whispers about his other family began to surface. Investors asked quiet questions. Journalists hinted at rumors. For him, reputation was everything. And so one evening he made a choice that would scar more than childhoods. The boys stood in their mother's small living room when he came. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words were colder than the rain tapping the window. From today on, you are not my responsibility. Do not use my name. Do not expect my help. Their mother's tears blurred her vision, but he never looked at her. He turned, adjusted his cufflinks, and left. The slam of the door was heavier than any shout. The news spread quickly. At school, classmates whispered that they were the CEO's shame, the sons he didn't want. Teachers looked at them with pity, neighbors with judgment. Their mother worked nights washing dishes at a diner while the boys tried to be strong for her. But every night as they lay in a room where the ceiling leaked when it rained, the silence pressed down like a weight. They didn't understand why their father could be celebrated by the world, yet see them as nothing more than stains on his name. That wound cut deep and it never healed, but in its place something else began to grow. By the time they reached their teenage years, the wound had hardened into determination. The older brother Marcus buried himself in books, fascinated by computers and how things worked. He spent hours in the public library, scribbling notes, sketching ideas, dreaming of machines that could change lives. The younger Daniel had a gift for people. He could sell candy at school and double his money, not because he was pushy, but because he knew how to make others believe in him. Together, they were different halves of the same coin, vision and persuasion. Life offered no shortcuts. They mowed lawns, carried groceries, cleaned garages, any job that gave them a few dollars. Every penny they saved, every dollar they earned went into a small metal box under their bed. At night, when their mother was asleep, they whispered about the future. Marcus showed Daniel diagrams of apps and websites he wanted to build, while Daniel spoke of partnerships, deals, and convincing investors someday. But their father's shadow never left them. Kids at school still mocked them. Millionaires trash, they sneered, reminding them of the man who had erased them. Instead of breaking them, those words carved sharper edges. Each insult became fuel. Each laugh pushed them further. By 16, the brothers weren't just dreaming, they were planning. They weren't waiting for someone to save them. They were preparing to prove the world wrong. At 17, the brothers launched their first project, a small online platform connecting local tutors with students. It was clumsy, full of glitches, and barely anyone used it. Investors rejected them without hesitation. One even laughed outright, telling them to get real jobs. But Marcus kept coding, refining his skills late into the night, while Daniel knocked on doors pitching their idea to anyone who would listen. Each failure stung, but none of them stopped. Months turned into years of trial and error. They worked from a corner table in a coffee shop, fueled by cheap coffee and the unshakable belief that one breakthrough could change everything. And then it came. Marcus developed a tool that helped small businesses automate their online orders. Daniel convinced a struggling bakery to test it. Within weeks, the bakery doubled its sales. Word spread. Soon, local businesses lined up, and the brothers' tool became indispensable. By 20, their company had grown faster than anyone expected. Tech blogs wrote about them, calling them self-made prodigies. Invitations to conferences arrived, and investors who once mocked them now begged for a seat at the table. Bank accounts that once held coins now overflowed with millions. Their faces were on magazine covers. And in a tall office downtown, their father watched the news, his reflection flickering on the screen as his son's names echoed louder than his own. Success changes many things, but not the past. The brothers knew that. Reporters asked if they wanted to reconcile with their father now that they had surpassed him. Marcus only smiled. Daniel simply said, "We don't need him to validate us." Their empire was built not on his name, but on the strength they discovered in each other. The man who once erased them had become irrelevant, not through revenge, but through their growth. And that is where the lesson lies. Life will hand you rejection, betrayal, even humiliation. It will strip you down until all you have left is a choice: surrender or rise. These brothers chose to rise. They turned shame into resilience, poverty into resourcefulness, and absence into unity. Their millions were not just numbers in a bank account. They were proof that wounds can become wings. Their father's wealth, titles, and reputation faded into the background, a footnote in the story of two men he had disowned. But their names now stood as a testament. Greatness is not inherited, it is forged. For everyone watching, the truth is simple. You don't need approval to matter. You don't need a perfect beginning to write an extraordinary ending. When life rejects you, remember, rejection is not the end. It is an invitation to build a life so powerful that the world cannot ignore it.